Shalom, shalom. Kol halalima Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem Rakak Badash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the prophets of that body. Shalom to the 144,000 in greater multitude. May peace and blessings be upon your households. Shalom. Yeah, just checking, recent news on the, whole lot of information coming about Ground Zero, America. Although let me just check out what's happening in the UK with regards to haulage, food shortages, which is definitely happening um, in real time. Whether it's eggs, chicken, your basics, they're running out. Vitamins are running out. Like if you go to the section of a supermarket, right, there's a section there for vitamins and, your basic sort of pharmaceutical type tablets, headaches or whatever, things of that nature. All these things are running out. Shelves are very, very, very scarce. Okay. The perishable items are very scarce, but for the most part, when it comes to complete junk, your processed things like chips and potato crisps and things like that, they're still plentiful because those things are made. I mean, that's not even really food, to be honest with you. But the Lord did say, "We'll eat our food defiled." In the in our captivities. The Lord did say that food will be defiled. Paraphrasing scripture there. Overall, I've got some information on basically 2025 in terms of we're halfway through the year almost. Just another 4 weeks to go. Then we're hitting month 6. It's June. Okay, in 2025, several UK supermarkets, including Tesco, Asda, and Aldi, presumably Aldi, have experienced food shortages, particularly for certain items like bananas, tinned beans, and fresh produce. Okay, and fresh produce includes meat as well as veg. Okay, these shortages are often attributed to factors like bad weather, shipment delays, and even low yield on farms. Okay, yeah, I mean, because obviously the farmers are being paid not to create or grow anything, right? Shipment delays, that's because of tariffs and things of that nature, and also by the powers that be are stalling shipments, or they're putting it into a larger warehouses where they can store up food so they can collapse society. Bad weather, obviously, they got Esau's, the so-called white man has been given the weather modification equipment, which they utilize to create certain scenarios, problem, reaction, solution. Okay, obviously it's all Yahweh Bashem Shai pursuant to Isaiah 45 verse 7, because the Lord controls the right hand side as well as the left hand side. And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai is not a man that he should lie. So therefore, these things are happening for the demise of this rulership, which is the so-called white man's rulership, Esau's rulership, because nothing lasts forever. We've had multiple rulerships prior to the so-called white man's. Okay, they all fell, and they were all they're all more grand, more powerful, more prestigious than the so-called white man's rulership. Egypt, for example, okay, the Persian rulership, captivity, Egyptian captivity. These rulerships were a heck of a lot more powerful. Okay, right, and this one is very short rulership. Okay, and this is nothing compared to the ancient world. All right, but it's a heathen rulership nonetheless, and it's not going to last forever because it's not the rulership of the Israelites, and it's not the kingdom of heaven, which is eternal, the real eternals. All right. All right. Sure, you Jakes have Audi in the States, don't you? You have Audi. What else do you have up there? You have a couple that we have over here anyway. Okay, Tesco. Tesco stores across the UK have reported shortages of bananas, with some attributing the issue to bad weather, causing shipment delays. Asda, okay, has implemented purchase limits on certain fresh produce items likely due to shortages. Yeah, I go and buy chicken thighs, a couple of trays of that every week, right? And they have not been there. Okay, and yeah, they've not been in there, and the meat aisles are completely empty. All right, a lot of people are shopping in the sections where they've got goods that are like on their last day of expiry or like have 24 hours left, so people can go in there and just cook for the day. Um, you got a lot of individuals coming into stores. I saw it myself, an Edomite family last week. They came into the store, they loaded up their trolley, and they walked right through the self checkout aisle, right? And security was focusing on other things, and it just looks like when they're walking out, like they've already paid for it. But these crackers are proper cave people, and they smelled like shit when they're walking by. They had an Irish accent, okay, and they weren't Jake, of course. They were definitely not Jake. Okay, they were heathens. You could tell through the spirit. They were like cave people that we brought out from the ancient world in a time machine, right? Out of the caves, these Edomite cave monkeys, these crackers, and put into modern clothing, and they're walking around stinking with their hair all tangled up and shit. I swear that all they needed was just a mallet. What's it called? Like a big thigh bone in their hand, like in the Flintstones, and said "ooga booga" or something. Seriously, you got people doing that, and I mean, if really most of these supermarkets, if you look at that, are doing criminal activities, many Edomites, because I live in a predominantly Israelite foreigner stroke Elamite stroke Ishmaelite type area. It's a very brown area. You got crackers about, but most of the criminal activity when it comes to shit like that is mainly Edomites. Elam just keeps his head down, does his job. That's why he'll make a good slave in the kingdom, man. Ishmael with his anyway, I don't want to start digressing. Salakia. Okay, so as there's implemented limits to things that you can buy, Tesco's got food shortages, perishable items as well as non-perishable items. As there's got like limits. Okay, yeah, you can only buy like I don't know, 10, but a dozen, a dozen bananas. You can't go, you can't buy more than that, or half a dozen bananas. You can't buy more than that. Like we had the ration card here in the UK in World War II, where everybody was, American soldiers would come from America and entice the British women with, oh, I'll buy you stockings and I'll buy you some chocolate or I'll buy you some perfume from America. They're coming with them goodies, right? Okay, because of the food shortages. Because at that time there was a ration card. Now there's going to be a ration card again this time. You're going to be limited to what you can eat and what you can eat and what you can't eat. All right, when World War III kicks in, which it already has, but on a higher scale, meaning that it's going to really affect your day-to-day life. Right now, you're just coasting through, right? It's going to affect you very soon because Revelation 11:14, World War III, once that kicks into fifth gear, ain't no turning back. All right, there's no turning back now. Now they're talking about bad weather contributing to extreme, heavy rainfall and storms. Okay, shipment delays, whatever excuses they're using. They're also saying that there'll be fuel shortages as well. That's 3rd of February 2025, 3 months ago. Petrol and diesel shortages. All right. Obviously, with petrol and diesel shortages and the prices going through the roof, obviously it's going to affect drivers. It's going to affect their back pocket. Then you got a lot of people complaining about wages have gone back to the early 2000s in terms of the wage bracket. You know, whatever basic salary it could be, whatever your salary would be, it's gone back 25 years. 6th of March 2025. Tesco shoppers baffled as supermarkets run out of key items. All right, let's see if there's anything else. In 2025, the UK haulage industry is facing a challenging situation with many companies struggling financially, including those involved in food trucking. Increased costs, driver shortages, and overall economic uncertainty are contributing to this trend. with some companies entering administration or going bust. The financial strain. The Road Haulage Association (RHA) Cost Movement Survey 2024 revealed that 49.2% of haulage businesses established since 2019 have either gone insolvent or closed. This is due to rising costs, including fuel, labor, and insurance, which are putting pressure on profitability. High prices of goods and services. Any of those free coffees or 10 pence or 10-cent coffees. There used to be these coffee machines back in the day. They're all gone. They're going to charge you a heck of a lot more for you know, that latte or straight black coffee that you like. Driver shortage, a significant driver shortage exacerbated by Brexit and aging workforce. All right, increased labor costs. Company closures. Food haulage specifics. The Road Haulage Association estimates that 98% of all food and agricultural products in the UK are transported by road. 98% of it, highlighting the importance of the industry. Even large food haulage companies like Bridgetime Transport, Yodel, and Morgan McLernan have faced financial difficulties. Example of closures: companies like Bridgetime Transport, Young's Transportation, AAD Transport, Gwynedd Shipping, which is more than likely a Welsh company, and S&J European Haulage, Linkline Transport, and Cartwright Brothers have all entered administration or have been affected by financial struggles this year. Long-term outlook. While some hope that market consolidation will lead to healthier conditions for remaining companies in the future, the haulage industry faces significant challenges in 2025, and many companies are struggling to survive. This year has seen some major businesses in the sector struggling financially. Okay, we already read about that. Acquired under the Freedom of Information Act, the data indicates that haulage firms who entered insolvency rose from 225 during 2020 and 2021 to 363 the following year, which is 2022. And then last year, in 2024, 463 haulage companies closed. I mean, obviously, you understand that the UK is a very small island as well. You can fit the UK into Texas 5 times. All right, so the UK is a very small island. All right, ongoing shortage. The driver shortage in the UK estimated around 60,000 as of recent reports remains a pressing issue. Okay, Brexit has reduced access to EU drivers and an aging workforce is leading to increased retirements without enough new entrants. What's the legal age of retirement in the UK? I think they increased that. Legal age of retirement in the UK. It's going to keep increasing the age of your state pension when you're legally allowed to use it. You can retire at any age, but that pension, that state one, it's got a scripture. All right. Ecclesiastes 12:3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong man shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. Okay, verse 4. I mean, the grinders cease, jobs are decreasing. Not many jobs, obviously, food and goods and services are not coming in. What do they need extra drivers for? Drivers are not getting their loads, they're making less money. They're making less money, they spend less. They spend less, other shops close, less foot traffic in other stores. People are purchasing less online. All right, your luxury shops, the things that are like kind of a luxury or whatever, they're going to suffer because people don't have the disposable income to purchase. All right, you know. And then when you go even to the store to buy food, you won't be buying no luxury items. You won't be buying no chocolate cake or cookies or muffins or whatever, there'll be a luxury. You're just going to be buying just milk, water, bread, maybe beans, maybe eggs if they're available, chicken, you know, kidney beans or something. Make a bean salad. The different types of beans. It's all going to be like practical, high calorie, staple foods that are for survival. All right. And then obviously with supermarkets already going self checkout, they'll need less people to take on as well. So this overall is going to affect everything. All right. So the grinding is ceasing. People look out their window, they don't see no hope. Everything seems dark and grim. You know, that's why everybody bitching and moaning for the past. Oh, I want to go back to the 80s. I want to go back to the 70s. Can anybody go? If there's a time machine, I'll go back there in 1985 and stay there. They want to live a Groundhog Day life. They just want to wake up in that same era. Well, nothing lasts forever. Okay. If Esau had a time machine, had access to a time machine, that motherfucker probably will try and go back in time and stay there. So I want to stay here, man. If we go head forward into the future, shit, I'll have chains around my neck. That's what Esau's going to think. Maybe. Verse 4, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. Doors are shutting. Stores are shutting. Companies are shutting. Factories are shutting. Arrest somebody that want that I've seen people. There's like a couple of places in my local town, which is 10-minute walk away. Many banks are shut. Okay, physical walk-in banks, they're shutting down. Right, all you've got is a whole lot of bunch of barber shops and these mobile phone shops, which are probably front for something else. All right. And there's been a couple of spots where I've seen 3 different types of restaurants open in the last 2 years. Right, because no one's going to the restaurants to eat. The restaurants cost money. They think to themselves, "Fuck that! I'm not going to go to the restaurant and spend, I don't know, 150, 200 pounds, for myself and somebody else. I'll rather just to get that money, buy a whole bunch of food, and take it home and cook it." People are eating indoors a lot more. All right. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the doors of music shall be brought low. Music is trash, as you can see. I'm going to quote Trick Daddy. He goes, "Nobody's in love anymore. Nobody wants to be in love anymore." In that era, remember that era? If you're young enough, sorry, if you're old enough, how the mid to late 90s used to be is always about romance and, flowers and shit and that Keith Sweat spirit, baby, 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 and all that, when you saw, a whole bunch of couples walking around, you hardly ever see that anymore. When music was all about romance and, finding that one, when you're young and simple, butterflies in your stomach when you meet that new girl when you're like 19, 20 years old. It's like that. People don't feel that normal. There's no more music of that era. There's that romance is gone. Bye bye American Pie. All that's finished. Those simple things that people used to worry about. About what they're going to wear to school the next day. Like you see these old shows from set in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. The only problem they had was, a girl had was how she wanted to get the attention of a guy she liked in her class, and vice versa. A young lad, it's got the hots for a young chick, or a young girl, or whatever. A young girl, not whatever. I mean, a young girl. He's got the hots for a young girl. How to get her attention. Those kind of issues are out the window. People got bigger problems, bigger fish to fry, man. Okay. Windows are, they look out, they don't see no hope, no future. It's like the movie The Fifth Wave when that girl wakes up. Everything's hunky dory, her family life, her home, pristine. She's got a great high school life. She likes a guy in school, whatever. They got after in the evening they're going to somebody's house for a party, And that night, what happens? Everything changes in 24 hours, man. If you haven't seen the movie The Fifth Wave, check it out. You know, though they say peace and safety, but the sudden destruction come upon them like a woman in travail. All right. So music is trash, movies are trash, entertainment is trash. Everybody watches the old stuff. Me personally, I only watch new shows if it's got some kind of information to learn, or it's a spiritual power-based movie, like a Black Adam type situation. But for the most part, I don't really watch new movies or new shows. I can't stand them. If I got some downtime, I want to watch some classic shit. Maybe some British sitcoms, maybe some American sitcoms, from the 70s and 80s. I mean, that's the era that I grew up in, so that's the era that I like in terms of shows, entertainment. All in the Family, things like that. Verse 5, also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the arm, actually, that's not, I don't need to go that far. All right. And the doors of music shall be brought low, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up with the voice of the bird, and the doors of music shall be brought low. All right. So we're at that point where people don't see no hope. Okay. We're going to come to a point where people are going to start attacking the haves. The have-nots are going to start attacking the haves. All right. Okay. Then you're going to see who's a real neighbor at that time. Everyone's a neighbor when they're cool with you. Everyone's a neighbor when they've got things, when they're working, when they got stuff. When they're not having things anymore, when they're lacking, let's see how neighborly they are with you. Okay. 2nd Ezra 15. So there's 2nd Ezra 15. 2nd Ezra 15, King James Version. 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra 15:16, King James Version. Oh, sorry, 2nd Ezra 15:15. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right. You will see people rushing each other, fighting each other, people talking, commiserating, talking about, oh, let's do this, let's do that. They're not going to give a shit about your MPs, your politicians, your literal kings. All right. Verse 17, martial law kicks in. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right. Verse 18, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. All right. All you G's out there, Verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. We're going to see how people are neighborly then. Well, that good morning neighbor, it's going to be out the window. Not that people do that now anyway. You hardly ever see that anymore, That was like more of an 80s thing, early to mid 80s. People would say good morning to each other. People don't even do that no more. Anyway, all right, just thought I'd just hit the button quickly and all right, so that's what's happening right now. These are small little things that are adding up. All right, lack of haulage, lack of drivers, lack of drivers. There's drivers out there. They're going to blame it on people. People actually want to do driving work. All right, but it's a lack of goods and services. Lack of goods and services. What do they need an influx of drivers for? What they're going to drive? There's no haulage. It's going to get to the point where people are going to be literally fighting over a crumb. All right. Anyway, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Hashai Bashem Kodash. Shalom.